Okay, friends, today we are talking about something special. That special thing that you can find at any hour, on any corner, all over the world for just a few bucks. You know the one, that ground beef put between two slices of bread, right? Hamburgers. Sometimes I think that hamburgers, I think they might be like the true American mascot. I mean, think about it. Like we're into bald eagles. Bald eagles are cool, but hamburgers are in the running. I'm Caleb Cray Haynes, and you're listening to the ecoChristian podcast, where we're exploring what it means to be a Christian on planet Earth. And my friends, that involves all things, and today it involves hamburgers. And did you know that hamburgers originated, it's got its origins in Hamburg, Germany. It's not a joke. I thought it was. It's not. Right? Wie geht's? Was magst du? I got a little German. No, it's not a joke. It came up, they came up with the hamburger steak, as we like to call it in the South. You can go down to Cracker Barrel and get you one of those right now. If you know, you know. But the Americans, we were like, oh, you know what this needs? This needs buns. Right? Boom. World changed. Literally, that's actually what we're talking about today. How hamburgers are changing the planet. So save this episode, send it to your brother-in-law or whoever that flippin' burger loving person is in your life. Maybe it's you. Yeah. You know, one critical part of being Christian on planet Earth is considering what and how we eat. And we've talked about food a number of times on this podcast because, let's be honest, it's the best. But also, this can be kind of a no-no topic for many Christian circles when we address as a church, theologically, like what we believe, ethically, how we believe Christians should operate and consume in the world. Growing up, we would just have these awesome church potlucks. And I want to say it was like once a month on a Sunday night. And it was always such a good time. And there was always a bit of like laughter at somehow our music director he would finish the service and somehow make it up to be first in line at the potluck. I don't know how he did it. It was awesome, but it was just that good. You were clamoring for it, you know. We just had all this just amazing food. But you never hear any word about how our faith is related to this food or what this food means for us and what this potluck is about and why we're doing this as a Christian community. And you'd especially never hear any word on gluttony, right? I mean, really, can you imagine? Can you imagine if we addressed gluttony in the church? Like, we'd also have to talk about, like, sex and all sorts of other uncomfortable things and ways that we use our body in the world, right? And are we going to do that? So I think... and you can tell I'm just kind of picking fun here, but there is something here, and I think that there are sometimes these spoken, unspoken topics that you do not address or comment on. I'm gonna say around these parts here in the South where I'm at, but I think generally in other places in the world, right? Like how somebody's raising their kids, how much money somebody's making, right? What's in your wallet? We're not supposed to talk about that. You're not supposed to ask those questions. And if you have kids, you're constantly like navigating that weird space because the kids are going to ask the questions, right? And questions like, what kind of food are folks putting in their mouths? Are these questions that we can address, should be addressing in the church? Of course, right? And we do, and for better or for worse, and hopefully for better. But today, y'all, we've got to talk about some of that, mostly the latter. And I'm already thinking, whoops, there it is. I'm stepping right into that cow pie. But today we've got to talk about beef, my friends. And I want to give a quick caveat because I realize, and if you've been listening to this show, you've heard us talk about it, is that proper cattle management is a real climate solution. It's a real environmental solution. And if you want to hear us talk more about that, pretty much every episode that I've done with Jason Adkins, but especially the last one, episode 21 with Farmer Jason Adkins, we dig into that issue more on that episode, and I might get into that a little bit here because proper, crop rotation and agricultural management, especially when it comes to cattle, it's key. But here's the deal. Guys. The current beef situation we're in. First, the vast majority of beef we consume today is not the ecologically regenerative kind of beef. It doesn't come from those farms. Are you with me? It comes from industrialized cattle operations. And so, second, our other problem is that we wildly overconsume beef, especially in America and the global north, but also in plenty of other places in the world as well. Way more than we need, way more than is sustainable, way more than is good for us. Actually, according to Sophie Egan, who is the Director of Health and Sustainability Leadership for the Strategic Initiatives Group at the Culinary Institute of America and author of How to Be a Conscious Eater, say that 5 times fast, experts recommend aiming for a little under 4 ounces per week, or about 1 hamburger per week, or 2 servings of steak per month, and at most 7 ounces of poultry per week, or approximately 1 large chicken breast, end quote. All right, you can take that away. Third, below the surface, I think if we're honest, to name some of the things that we might be feeling here is important. Like when someone tells you that this thing, whatever that may be, in this case, a hamburger, right, that you enjoy, that is a regular part of your life and how you live and how you've always consumed is, well, maybe bad, right? Maybe not good. And that, let's just be honest, that's not the most welcoming thing to hear, is it? And so if you notice, when it comes to changing our diets or anything about our lifestyle in the effort of healing the planet, it can be a tough sell, and we just really don't like the idea of restriction most of the time. And so when someone kind of gets a whiff of their liberties, especially around how they consume in the world, being infringed upon, it makes for a tougher conversation, and it can often just feel off limits. But it's appropriately Christian, because I wonder, at some point, have we become captivated by the wrong ideals? At some point, did we place a certain idealism of liberty over, higher, and above actual well-being? So much so to suggest that we should not eat certain things, certain ways, and at certain times. That the way we consume should be marked by the God that we worship, right? It's audacious. It's audacious. But for some, that's a super tall order, because for years we've been working hard, collecting our trinkets, amassing our wealth, and we've faithfully done all the work of melting and molding all we've put into that golden cow, or golden calf. Wait, what are we talking about, right? and now you want us to not have it, to not worship it. You know that Bible story, don't you, that where God rescues his people. God rescues the Israelites from Egypt, and it's like moments later, they're forging something to worship in the image of a cow. It's a little ironic. Okay, so today I've got to share one of my favorite Bible moments with you guys. And y'all, this verse, it's just so good. Okay, I'm just going to read it. Here it is. This is in Exodus 16, and it reads, "The whole congregation of the Israelites set out from Elim and came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the month after they had departed from the land of Egypt." All right, verse 2. "The whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness." Okay, here it is, verse 3. "The Israelites said to them, 'If only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat and ate our fill of bread, for you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger.'" It's the word of the Lord, my friends. I mean, there it is. Drama much? I love that it gives you the actual day count, right? They're halfway into the second month. They're like 40 to 45 days out of slavery. And you know that story, don't you? Like, the Israelites are saved. They're literally saved from enslavement, and they're out of Egypt, and they're just a short ways into their journey toward the promised land, and they're already complaining. It reminds me of getting in the car with my children to go somewhere, and 1 minute in, it's like, "I'm hungry, I'm bored, are we there yet?" You know, it's like, we just got in the car, we're literally on the way to Chuck E. Cheese, stop it. The Israelites were like, "Can we go back to Egypt now, where we were slaves, where we at least had pots of meat?" It is amazing what just a little bit of hunger will do. Have you ever felt that? Like, you were a nice person, but now you're hungry, and someone best be getting out of the way, right? And it's like all of a sudden you're ready just to go back to brick making where you were a slave just to have that meat pot. So I remember one of the very first food documentaries that we watched back in the day was Food Inc. Anybody know what I'm talking about? This was like 2008. And Food Inc. is like the OG documentary and really holds up on so many levels. If you've never peered behind that curtain of our food system, highly recommend this documentary still today. Friends, there's a whole conversation that I'm not really having here today in this episode because there's just no time for around corn and dairy and factory farming and CAFOs. By the way, that's concentrated animal feeding operations. And the ideas around animal rights and conditions, or the negative health outcomes for us who eat too much red meat, right? Although it might be worth quoting Wendell Berry, who simply said, "I dislike the thought that some animal has been made miserable in order to feed me." It's worth saying. But let me throw down a bit of information about beef and those pots of meat we're sitting around night after night, okay? Hang with me. Let's go somewhere. There's a biomass study done just a few years ago, and it said that Out of all mammals on planet Earth, 36% are human, okay? 4% are wild animals, all right? So it's like monkeys, dolphins, you get it. 36% humans, 4% wild animals, and everything else is our livestock. Holy cow, literally. We know that cattle grazing for beef production today is the leading cause of deforestation in places all over the world. In Australia's, in the Amazon rainforest. Did I just say Australia's? In Australia and the Amazon, these rainforests and bushlands are being bulldozed right now to make way for hamburgers. Are you with me? Cow pastures. And what's even more sinister, if we were to pull all the curtain layers back and look, is that banks, lobbyists, media organizations are all involved with this or fund this current animal agricultural industry because it's the money pipeline, okay? But let's talk about the beef itself, because the carbon footprint of beef is 20 times higher compared with plant-based protein sources, just such as beans or lentils, okay? On average, producing 1 pound of beef releases 100 pounds of carbon dioxide. Let's say it again. 1 pound of beef, on average, releases around 100 pounds of carbon dioxide. Your 1 pound hamburger produced 100 pounds of greenhouse gas. For perspective, if you just took a pound of coal, and burned it, that would release like 4 pounds of carbon dioxide. It would be better, but obviously you can't eat that. And while cattle emits lots of methane and nitrous oxide, methane is around 30 times more potent than carbon dioxide when it comes to causing the greenhouse effect. Actually, the issue of beef is so significant because it affects people all over the world. And in Australia even, the Climate Council found that agriculture was responsible for over half of Australia's methane emissions in the last year. And it found that nearly 65% of climate pollution came from methane emitted by cattle and sheep. And it's reported that we have to lower our methane emissions by 45% this decade, okay? If we're going to talk about getting global warming to staying beneath that 1.5 degree threshold. Okay, so if you're catching the big picture here, global beef production is causing deforestation on one end, followed by soil depletion, followed by oceanic dead zones. We didn't even get into that because of pollution runoff, coupled with greenhouse gas. It's a thunderstorm of issues, all for beef. Did you know that it requires 20 times more land? 20 times more land just on average when you choose beef over something else, over beans. And if the world adopted a plant-based diet, we would reduce global agricultural land use from 4 to 1 billion hectares. It requires that much more land. And we haven't even gotten to water use. Fresh water, which the world is in desperate need of. So for perspective, less than 3% of Earth's water is fresh. Okay, you think like we live in a water world, but so much of that water is either salt water or it's frozen. and or underground. And actually, only about 1% is available. 1% of fresh water is available for human and ecosystem consumption, and only about 0.3 of that is surface water. Okay, like lakes and rivers and stuff. So today, if you go out in a restaurant and you choose a hamburger for lunch, that hamburger requires 31 times more water than if you ate a salad. 31 times more. Okay, friends, so just for a minute, I want to just drill in on something. And it's all connected. But we've got to talk about drought. And if you're listening to this and you live out in some of the western states here in the United States, or know someone who does, it is a huge issue. And actually, while capable of producing over 2,000 megawatts of hydropower each year, just as of June of 2022, and you may remember because there are several articles that came out about this, but the power coming from the famous Hoover Dam, Lake Mead, has actually been cut in half. So to around 1,000 megawatts because of low water levels. So Lake Mead's elevation is around 90 feet away from being at the lowest point to be able to offer electricity to 1.3 million Americans, and 145 feet away from what's called Deadpool, at which we would need outside power to even pump water through the dam, because that makes sense. So the solutions to this Lake Mead water crisis are no longer upstream, as the second largest reservoir, Lake Powell, suffers the same fate. Recently, emergency steps were taken to keep Lake Powell flowing water and energy to over 5 million homes. So cuts at Lake Powell have been made from sending water downstream. Meanwhile, upstream from there, at Green River's Flaming Gorge, they're sending water down. But this water release will eventually mean really bad things for communities and the economy, particularly of Utah, who make their living from this water. Fishermen come from all over the world to enjoy. And so there's a domino effect of drought that's working its way upstream, and all of America will eventually feel the effects of this, not just because our grass is getting dry and our cars aren't washed, but because of our food. Growing food requires the revolutionary, right? Massive amounts of water. In fact, around 95% of the water required in the life cycle of food is not visible in the final product. So the majority of water that goes into making our food is called consumptive water use. Consumptive water use is water that doesn't return to the watershed or at all, or at least in any usable fashion, right? And agriculture is highly consumptive. So industrial agriculture accounts for more than 90% of consumptive water use in the western states. So what are we trying so hard to grow out there in these arid lands? Here's the answer. Mostly barley, corn, wheat, sorghum, alfalfa, hay crops. Are you with me? Here's where we're bringing this back. Here lies much of the issue behind the issue. The often unadmitted truth is that a great deal of our water is being used to resuscitate self-destructing agricultural practices while promoting also unsustainable cultural, livestock-centric American diets. Are you with me? The West's water is heavily used for livestock feed so that we can all have our steaks and cheese fries and ice cream. Y'all, and watering crops mostly hay crops to feed cattle, uses about 3 times as much water as every city that relies on the Colorado River. The Colorado River is incredibly in trouble, guys. And to just get 1 pound of beef, we're sucking out around 1,800 gallons of water for 1 pound of beef. The industrialized and subsidized hamburger economy is draining the water dry. The issues are getting so intense that scientists have actually made efforts to pay farmers in the upper Colorado River Basin to let their fields go fallow. After calculating the cost, researchers realized that the state could attain its water use goal if 20% of the farmers who are growing livestock feed didn't farm. Hear me out, okay? Let's just take a breath here. I'm just throwing down lots of stats, lots of information. I grew up on hamburgers. I remember as a kid, I hated breakfast food, which it's hard for me to even say now because literally breakfast is my jam. And I go to bed at night thinking about breakfast. But as a kid, I think I just got burned out or something, and I didn't like breakfast food. So we go out for breakfast, and I'd order a hamburger. Okay. Then later we'd go to the ballpark and get hamburgers, and then after soccer practice, we'd stop at Burger King. You get the idea, and obviously, it was not great for this chubby little middle schooler. But for me, moving from a beef-centric diet, that was a big learning curve, right? And it is a natural feeling to feel, this sucks. You know, a lot of environmental advocates will do everything in their power just to tell you, there's so much more good food to enjoy. I mean, portobellos and roasted veggies and amazing grains and mouth-watering grilled goodness, literally like you've never had, that isn't beef. And that actually is true. But my friend, it's okay. It's okay just to stop and say, you know what? I do like hamburgers. I do like beef. And changing my diet to consume less of that does make me kind of sad. And it doesn't sound fun or nice or exciting, even if it's the right thing to do. You see, here's the thing. You can do something that's the right thing and not enjoy doing it, especially at first. You can do something to do your part to help all life on earth thrive and it not be your favorite thing and it not give you the feels. I'm just going to throw that out there, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But here's the good news. You, my friend, we humans are resilient. Humans are capable of adapting to so many situations. Neural pathways are formed and reformed. And from personal experience, what begins as hard becomes habit and eventually can become holy. Part of your life expressing the image of God in the world, even through your diet. Let me say, especially through your diet. So maybe this wilderness journey for you feels a bit like going hungry in a desert for 40 years or 40 days, and you're looking at legumes like it's manna, and you're saying, what the heck is that? But my friends, by the grace of God, we take this whole journey together with one another in community, day by day, which is our daily bread. That's why we call it our daily bread. And I think that maybe nothing short of a new holiness movement will suffice. We've expressed social holiness in the church through all sorts of things. I mean, we've avoided harmful media and, seductive dancing and smoking. And we used to not even go to the movies, all because it was really important to express what it looks like to be a holy people in the presence of a holy God, which, by the way, is what the book of Leviticus is about. That's a freebie. It is equally as radical today, friends, for the church not to participate in these destructive diets. Is it that far-fetched to suggest that Christians should avoid these systems that oppress all of us? Just consider fast food, not just for the sake of the health of our own bodies, which should be enough, but for the sake of the earth, which we so depend, which God so created and called good, and our brothers and sisters whose lives are actually impacted from these lifestyle choices, and in no small way, and for our children who inherit this earth. Might the people of God stand up against the broken systems through fasting and abstinence from self-destructing, overly processed food production? Through a single bite, we could simultaneously offer kingdom alternatives to desertification, the release of excess methane in our atmosphere, increased global warming, water misuse, and corporate causes of biodiversity loss in our environment. In this, the church may refuse things like eating beef that isn't grass-fed and regenerative and consuming copious amounts of dairy. It matters. Through eating more local meals and supporting local farmers who are doing the work of prairie restoration, we could actually regenerate the land. So, my friends, may you continue to step forward bravely, following God into this wilderness. It may be hard. It will be different. You'll be wanting one of those pots of meat again. I guarantee it. But a return to that is a return to enslavement for everyone and everything involved. That, my friends, is a return to Egypt. So knowing that you're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses who are also on that journey of the work of God's people in the world, bringing about God's kingdom, a people of a holy God who calls us to be a means of blessing and life to the world, which for those of us in 2024, similar to thousands of years ago, means altering the way we consume in the world, to not worshiping that golden cow, but the living God.